October 22nd, 2025. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Justice, Natalie Tacklin, to address you. Minister Tacklin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relika. Good morning to Emile and to everybody, of course, viewing at home, and to the people of St. Martin and the staff of DCOM here with us today as well. As always, I appreciate the opportunity to share updates on the important work taking place within the Ministry of Justice. Today, my remarks will be brief, yet I find it important to show up, even when there's not much to announce, because consistent communication is part of how we build trust and accountability. In the coming week, the Ministry will begin the rollout of a new initiative that represents a major step forward in strengthening our detention sector. While I reserve the full details for its official launch next week, I can say that it reflects months of planning, collaboration, commitment, and meaningful reform. In preparation, representatives from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, the UNODC, will be meeting with local partners to advance key objectives and support rehabilitation, safety, and sustainability within our justice system. At the same time, the United Nations Office for Project Services, UNOPS as we've come to call it, is gearing up to officially start the construction of the new prison facility. More information will be shared in the coming days, but I can assure the people of St. Martin that progress is being made. To address challenges associated with scooter riders, the police force of St. Martin has been implementing its strategic plan. As part of this ongoing effort, KPSM has become more active in conducting night controls at locations frequently visited by scooter riders. These operations also focus on preventing and reducing illegal firearm and drug activity. For operational and security reasons, details of the plan will not be disclosed to the public. However, it is important to note that a similar initiative was carried out in the past with positive results. Building on that experience, KPSM is now preparing to execute a similar version of this strategy in the future to further strengthen public safety and maintain order across the community. With that being said, before closing, I do wish to extend my deepest condolences to the families and the loved ones of Mr. D. Labadie, who unfortunately lost his life in a tragic accident with a scooter, actually. Losing a loved one is never easy, and may his family find strength and comfort during this difficult time.
You know, I recently did have a chance to visit the prison and speak to an inmate to get some insights. And so I understand that you're rolling out something soon, but I do have a number of questions. In previous communications with your office, it was mentioned that there's 300 years of sentences waiting to be served. But I've heard conflicting stories that say, no, it's 300 people waiting for sentences to be served. That's a big difference. Can you clarify, is it years, people?
Yeah.
What's the number we're really looking at?
It is years, as at least that's the number that has been communicated to my office by the prosecutor's office, because as we know, the prosecutor is the authority in charge of the execution of prison sentences. And indeed, the way that they've kept track of this is not necessarily expressed in a number of people, but in if we had to accumulate all those years of sentences, I think right now we're at 300 or maybe even 400 plus.
Okay. And the current number of cells, I think, was about 89, 90 cells?
Correct. Well, we're at a capacity of 80 when it comes to the men, and for women at 6. So we're 80, and then of course we have capacity for 15 in the police cells. But of course that is capped at a maximum of 10 days that we're authorized or legally allowed to.
Okay, and the new construction will add then another how many cells?
So eventually we will double. So we're expecting phase 1 to be complete in Q1 2027. Phase 1 of the facility will take us from the current 80 to 120. And at the completion of phase 2, which will be a year later in 2028, we will be at a total of 196.
Okay. And so based on the number of years that you have outstanding and based on the construction, you anticipate you will have sufficient cells for the current needs?
Well, so the the numbers were calculated also based on, at least the way that we got to that sweet spot of 196. This was before my time, of course, but from what I was explained was we looked at, of course, the anticipation of, where do we expect crime to go? What is the horizon for that? But on top of that, more importantly, what can we afford as a country? I know that there are old reports from the Council of Law Enforcement from years ago, which indicate, that we would need around 300 cells. However, that's not a number that we as a country can sustain and can actually afford to pay for. So we looked at kind of regional averages, what is expected and what type of trends are being expected, and then more importantly, what would be the pressure of that on the national budget and what could the country responsibly sustain. And that's how that number of 196 was chosen.
Okay. So in the current environment with so many sentences waiting to be served, I've spoken with some police officers, and there is a sense that there's a level of sort of minor enforcement that feels like it's not really worth their effort to do, because even if we catch people, even if they're convicted, they're not going to serve time. That understanding also pervades through the community, which also creates a sort of feeling that, well, we could push the envelope because chances of us serving time are limited. So how is the lack of cell capacity affecting that justice level in the community? How is that, in practical terms, impacting the level of crime in our community?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as from that justice perspective, the ideal for me as well is, that there are consequences to every type of action, whether that be a fine, whether that be, even, I was reading an article the other day where in the Netherlands, a lot of sentences that were executed were short sentences for individuals who had failed to pay fines or civil liability, that then they convert that into a sentence. And I think you get better compliance when it comes to people paying fines if the minute you don't pay that fine, you spend a night or a couple of days in a police cell. So of course, that is, I think, a space we would like to get to. And indeed, looking at, I think it's not just a capacity issue with the prison necessarily, but it's also a capacity issue in terms of resources that we have. We're also right now, we have technical assistance requests out to the Netherlands to ask for extra capacity when it comes to detective work, so that we're able to not only focus on the big things, but also to be able to look, like you said, at those more minor infractions, because, now you're kind of having to focus on the more blockbuster, bigger matters that really affect the social fabric more than the minor ones. But I think on the long term, our vision is that even those minor infractions need to be addressed, because I think you start at the small things and from there it adds up. So what is the effect? I think indeed we are seeing more of that effect, but at the same time, we've had a capacity issue it's not nothing new. It's nothing that happened this year. It's been at least since 2017. From after Irma, we actually lost cell capacity. And of course, as a result of litigation and court cases and human rights standards, those numbers have also shifted over time. So it's nothing new. We talk about it a lot these days. I think it's getting a lot of attention, but it's been pervasive within the society for the past 10 years, at least more.
You had mentioned in previous press conferences about generating statistical reports to really measure, indeed, has the level of crime increased over the years?
Right.
Have you had a chance to complete that, those reports?
We are still finalizing those numbers. We do have some data, that at least when it comes to, of course, we're in October right now. We have the data, at least for the end of last year, when it comes to, for example, robberies with use of a firearm. We haven't put these out as yet, but I can give you a little bit of a preview of that. We do see a larger number. The number is far higher for 2024 as it is for 2025. However, the types of robberies have changed. We're seeing more jewelry stores, more hotels, and in that sense, we feel like it's more in your face than when it was maybe the Chinese supermarket, maybe it was a home invasion that you don't hear about as much. So the data, if we compare last year to this year, was higher last year than it is this year currently. But in that sense, I don't necessarily want to let the data just speak. And in the coming days and weeks, we are working on a strategic plan for the high season. I want to ensure everyone that St. Martin is a safe destination, that it is a safe place to vacation, that it's a safe place to live. And we're putting a lot of emphasis and focus into that right now. And I think over the next days, weeks, and months, that we will see visibly what steps we're taking as a justice sector, and especially from within the police force, but also within the other departments within the chain. It's important to us that we have a chain approach to this, and that we also bring in, immigration, bring in customs. This isn't just a police task.
So I noticed the Prime Minister's come in, but I was on a line of questioning. So if you don't mind, Minister, and I'll sort of jump to, in my conversation with one of the inmates, a suggestion was made that I thought was a very interesting suggestion. The schools are looking for food programs to help. There's children who are going to school without enough to eat. The prison has kitchen facilities. The inmates are happy to wake up earlier, and said, look, they could participate by learning skills, learning how to work in a restaurant type setting, produce food, and use that food to support the child feeding program for the schools. Are you open to those types of
absolutely.
cooperations?
Absolutely. And we've had those thoughts. We looked at a program, Bonaire, actually is offering similarly to this, where they're making sandwiches for the schools. So we are looking into that and the logistics of how we could implement something like that, what type of funding would be required in order to implement that. And it's also part of, as I said, I'm excited for next week, where you will also be invited, and I know we're also going to be doing a radio tour and informing the public of what this wider umbrella of detection sector reform actually means. And part of that are those soft components. And that is where we're partnering with the UNODC, and we're looking at other avenues to be able to provide these types of activities within the prison.
And last question is, I understood that because of outstanding payments, that the therapy for inmates, the mental health support, is not currently active because there's outstanding payments to the organizations that provide that. Can you comment to that? Because if any group on the island needed that support, it would be the inmates.
Yeah, so that one is high on my priority list as well. And we are actually working together with some of those organizations to understand where those outstandings come from, if we could enter into some type of arrangement into the future and a payment plan on the balance that is there. Additionally, I have secured funding to conduct a baseline study within the prison, because of course everyone has different needs. So the question is, what type of care do we need to offer? So we do have funding secured in order to bring in a professional to be able to make an assessment of what the necessities are and what requirements we would have to put in place. So that's a part of this larger picture as well. And I understand very well for the individuals that are currently detained that it's a long wait. And, I've continued to say, I can't just say, oh, we're building this new facility. And it's why it's important, that that program is starting next week. The UNODC is here on an initial fact-finding mission. They have hired a program manager that is going to be full-time here on the island. And that's going to be bringing all of these different components together. And it's remained important to me that we do see progress and that we do have programs and activities launched prior to the opening of the new facility.
Agenda point number 2 is the reappointment of the current ombudsman Ex-Article 2 of the National Ordinance on the Ombudsman. The document relating to this topic is registered on the IS 1164, and it's dated June 12th of this year. A brief recap. Based on Article 2 of the National Ordinance Ombudsman, it is the Parliament that appoints an ombudsman for a period of 7 years. The ombudsman can only be reappointed once for a second term. According to law, the ombudsman is an independent institution whose main role is to, 1, investigate complaints about the conduct of administrative authorities, so government bodies, ensuring fairness, legality, and good governance. The ombudsman receives and investigates complaints, ensures good governance, and reports to Parliament. Additionally, the ombudsman also acts as guardian of the Constitution, as we call it, whereby the ombudsman is tasked by the Constitution with reviewing adopted national ordinances, our laws, for possible conflicts with the Constitution. Our constitutional history has a few cases where the ombudsman used that authority and challenged adopted national ordinances. And these were then, and that challenge would be to the Constitutional Court. The term of the current ombudsman, Mrs. Gwendolyn Mossel, commenced on January the 1st, 2019. Hence, it will come to an end on December 31st of this year. With the end of the first term of the current ombudsman in sight, by letter of June 12, 2025, Parliament was informed by Mrs. Mossel of her availability to continue serving the people of St. Martin for a consecutive term as ombudsman. In other words, a second term as ombudsman. As I mentioned, this letter is registered on the document IS 1164. The proposal before Parliament, who is responsible for the appointment, is therefore to appoint Mrs. Gwendolyn Mossel for a second term starting on the 1st of January 2026. To which member of Parliament can I give the floor at this time?
To commend the Ombudsman, Ms. Gwendolyn Mossel, on her work up to now. And I definitely am in favor of, extending her term, seeing the systemic investigations that she has had, the route to accountability. I think that she is walking it very nicely. And yes, I congratulate her and, her nomination for a second term.
After reviewing the 2024 budget or the report from the Ombudsman, I'd like to make a short comment, and it is concerning the 136,422 guilders that were not spent, that were allocated to the Ombudsman. I hope that this would be in the budget amendment that is coming up now, that we see that it's not the same amount, and I'd like to see what government is planning to do with that amount, since there's been a lot of cry that there are no funds. Otherwise, I will bring a budget amendment to be able to put that to use.
With these reports is that the Ombudsman will be invited to present on the report, and then maybe we can get some further insight into the budget allocation and use. But thank you for raising the point. As I mentioned, the annual reports of the Ombudsman, which is a requirement that needs to be submitted to Parliament, and the discussion on that one is yet to take place in Parliament. So thank you for that note, MP La Cruz.
SZV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SZV is cardless. Request your My SZV account today and enter the virtual office of SZV. Go to szv.sx and sign up now.
SZV, yeah. Your social health insurances.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, comm programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
St. Martin, as heavy rain falls across our region, we urge all residents and visitors to exercise caution and stay alert. Here are the areas prone to street flooding, flash floods, and/or rock slides. Avoid these locations until water levels subside. Ateelage Road Roundabout, Cul-de-Sac. Arch Road, Sucker Garden. Beacon Hill Road, Simpson Bay. Ateelage Road, Border Monument, Belvedere, Lower Princess Quarter. Billy Folly Road, Cole Bay. Emma Plain, Phillipsburg. L.B. Scott Road, Cul-de-Sac. Rhine Road, Lowlands. Welhalaken Road, Low K Roundabout, Cahill, Little Bay. Well Road, Wellington Road, and Orange Grove Road, Cole Bay. Yancho Rousquin Boulevard, Point Blanche, and Sakers Gut Road, Cul-de-Sac. Remember, safety comes first. Let's work together to keep our community safe. This public service announcement is brought to you by the Department of Communication.
Is to coordinate between three agencies: the NRPB, which is the implementing agency, the DLT, which is the client representing the government of St. Martin, and NRD, which is the management firm that was contracted to assist DLT and NRPB. So I am doing the coordination. So my role involves ensuring that all the deliverables are correct according to the World Bank rules, and to coordinate with the DLT to ensure that the work that is done on the ground with the MBAs are done according to the rules and regulations, and and NRD, which is doing the management firm, ensure that there is oversight and quality checks, quality assurance of the deliverables. They also assist in producing procurement documents such as TORs. The NRPB is the contracting agency, so all contract is done by the NRPB, and I am also the contract agent or the person who supervises all the contracts. We also have a department, the procurement department, who ensures that all procurement are done according to the World Bank standards, and they also write contracts. So overall, I do the coordination to ensure that all the deliverables are delivered on time and within budget and with quality standard. Thank you very much.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Williams. I am the Senior ICT Project Manager and Policy Writer for the Government of St. Martin, for the ICT Department in General Affairs. We are working for the Digital Government Transformation Project, of which I am a workstream project manager. What does that mean exactly? It means a group of projects that have reasonable contact with each other, that we kind of group them together because they're very important. Projects such as the design of the digital e-signature, digital ID, and SSO, legal packages for the legal review and framework for the digital ID and e-signature, and interoperability and enterprise architecture. We are also doing an enterprise architecture project, and in short, I think that one maybe asks for a little bit of the description. Enterprise architecture is really about when you build a house, you don't just start laying the bricks. You speak to a designer, architect, as to what functionality are you trying to achieve, how much space do you have, what is your budget, how are you going to get these certain things done, and what kind of functionalities you need with it. Government, of course, already exists, so it's about documenting and understanding the government organization as a whole, and then trying to, by design, make specific changes so that we intercommunicate and collaborate in a more effective and efficient manner. Thank you.
For the period January to September, major crimes against the person, including murder, serious bodily harm, endangering life, kidnapping, and robbery, increased by 50% when compared to that same period last year. Also registering a significant rise during the period was firearm-related crimes, which jumped by 57%. However, Acting Commissioner of Police Erwin Boyce says as of October 20th, there is a 2% decrease in overall crime and a 13% increase in total major crimes.
Within that category, homicides, that is murder, now stands at 38 when compared with 41 for 2024. Reported robberies are now 213 against 100 for the same period in 2024. This is the area that we are now focusing on since in analyzing the modus in relation to the homicides. 22 firearms, or the 22 were enabled by firearms.
Acting Commissioner Boyce says the service is stepping up its efforts on reducing criminal victimization and the fear of crime, noting that firearm-enabled crimes continue to be a scourge on the island. This year, police have so far confiscated 63 firearms, just 2 more than for the same period last year. The difference is much bigger regarding bullets, with 1,750 seized this year compared to 485 for the corresponding period in 2024. And lawmen are not only concerned about the criminal activity, but also the increasing number of young men between the ages of 15 and 30 who are involved.
Within the 15 to 19 age category, 391 persons charged, and I'm not saying all those persons were charged with serious crime. Between the age of 20 and 29, 999 persons were charged. Between 30 and 39, 877. And between 40 and 44, 376.
Targeted operations across communities have been paying dividends. Responding to some complaints about how police sometimes carry out those law enforcement duties, this is what he had to say.
There is an approach. There is policy directives. There are approaches to situations that we train our people to be involved in, and the execution of the warrant is there. If for some reason or the other there is some reluctance on the officer to provide the warrant or to read the warrant or to show the warrant, then we would always advise people, if there is that gap, then make a complaint to Office of Professional Responsibility, and it will be investigated.
Acting Commissioner Boyce has given notice that police officers will be even more visible in the coming weeks as the hectic winter tourism and the Christmas seasons approach. Onesta Henry, CBC News.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXV, yeah. Your social health insurances.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, Com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
At venue of dignitaries, students, government officials, fire officers, and other stakeholders, Prime Minister Mia Amor Motley declared the new headquarters for the fire and ambulance services open. The facility is called the Cadogan Mayor's Marshall Emergency Complex in honor of 3 former fire chiefs. Acknowledging that it was long in coming, Ms. Motley says it was important to merge several essential services in the facility. She referenced the Campus Trend tragedy.
When the Campus Trends fire claimed the lives of 6 young Barbadian girls. And we agreed then, as a nation, that we should do all to ensure no repetition, which means the ability to have a proper fire prevention and proper enforcement of our codes to ensure compliance.
The new complex, she says, is one that had to be repurposed to meet the safety of Barbadian lives and properties. Motley said, for years, the constraint to constructing the facility was a debt service.
At the time we started, as I told you, the government's fiscal circumstances were not the best. 69 cents in every dollar being paid in debt service meant that all that was left is money to pay salaries after you pay debt. And it therefore meant that the fire service was undercapitalized for a number of years, and major pieces of equipment that ought to have been bought 10, 15 years ago remained outside of their reach.
The Prime Minister says she will be monitoring the upkeep of the facility, noting that too many buildings in Barbados are not maintained.
By making sure that nobody don't litter, by making sure that nobody don't dirty up the walls, by making sure that nobody don't do the things that we would not want them to do if it was home at us. And if we treat it as a building that we live in and that it is home, and it really is home for many of you because of the manner in which you work, then that then becomes the possibility for us to make sure that this spanking new facilities a year and 2 years and 5 years from now looks just as it does today in splendid shape.
Deanza Roberts, CBC News.